this is what we're after today. It's a tri-cornered box. Technically, it's tri-cornered bowl, but today we're going to make it a box simply by adding a lid. It's a unique project. It doesn't take very long. Hopefully, hopefully we can knock this out before bedtime. So the way this works is it's a 5 by 5 by 5 square, and this happens to be a cherry burl from my inventory. And I also have a full set of this that we're going to raffle off at the end. Same thing, cherry barrel, enough to make the bed lid and the Coca-Cola for the top. Jim's here.
Where's the best seat?
You got the only seat in the house, my friend.
Right here. All right.
So this particular mount, because of the tri-corner, is point to point. I am not using a drive center. This is right off the lathe, off the spindle. I removed the pin from my tailstock live center. You can do that on almost every live center. If you can't, you could always cut a flat spot so that you could use a pointed live center. But in this particular case, so we're just going to mount the point inside the drive, bring up my tailstock, and we're going to just float that inside the point. That's not there anymore. So the point is out. Get that in there. Bring up my tailstock. So this is basically.
Am I the only one that lost audio?
Friction fit is all we're after. So that's what we're going for. So there's a lot of air in this turn. Very important to maintain.
Whoever's talking about audio, I think it is working.
I'm also going to try to use some of the carbide.
Look around your interface. You may have to enable
that might not be as good with a Bowl Gouge. So there we go. Can everybody see that okay? We should be able to see that pretty good. Lock everything down, especially with this type of a friction piece. Make sure everything's tight. We'll start off with a 5/8 Bowl Gouge. I use a Thompson. This is a little bit heavy duty with 20-inch handle, probably not necessary, but I turn so much big stuff. I like to stand back and get the hell out of the way when I do it. So just make sure that clears. It does. And we'll go ahead. So we're just going to start making some real light cuts, just to see where we're at. And again, if you stay on the bevel, you're fine. Couple just right, not too aggressive. Walk right down. Careful when you get to the end because you don't have no support. You add a few good light cuts. Simple as long as you're staying on that level. And then at the end, just blow up. That's all. Nice and easy. And then just a lot of these, you'll stop, see where you're at. You can see we're just knocking, basically just knocking all the corners off. Well, 3 of the corners anyway. So we'll just go to town. Once you get the corners kind of knocked down, then you can start to get a little bit more aggressive. You kind of come in this way if you'd like, and just take off a lot of wood. running fairly slow for this type of a I run slow all the time. I'm a very slow turner as far as speed. Very rarely do I get over 1,000 RPM. A lot of people like to go, 2,000, 3,000. It does help, but for me, I'm happy with 1,200. This particular model is the 3510, 3520A, and the digital readout is on the back. So you can't tell what you're doing anyway. So if you wanted to know, you can't. It's on the other side. You'd have to walk around. And it doesn't tell you speed. It tells you whatever those are on the back. So it's just a frequency reading. So you'd have to divide by 5, multiply by 10, divide by 5, and you come up with the actual speed. So you can see there, we're starting to get our cuts all the way through. And I'm just going to take a moment to switch over. I don't normally do this, but if you are more comfortable with carbide tools, I'm going to come in with my square carbide tip, and I'm just going to use the very, very tip on the left-hand side, and basically just walk it in, just real slow, real slow. Just a little walk, nothing dangerous, don't get too aggressive. Just basically the same thing as a roughing gouge at this point. Just to show you that it's like, you can get use out of these homemade $10 tools. Just walk right in, then just step it again, same step. Don't take off a lot of wood. And maintain that shape. I first started and realized I couldn't operate the Bowl Gouge. This was my #1 go-to method. And then once you get that, kind of where you want it, you switch over to your round carbide, and then just come in, just clean it up. Just clean it up. All that right there. These are non-supported, non-bevel cuts. I don't want to say they're foolproof, but as long as you bring it properly to the wood. And what I'll do most of the time, instead of coming in straight with the piece, just a slight angle on this tool, and that'll keep you away from a risky catch. If you just a little bit of an angle, will come in, and that'll keep you off the catch. So just to show you, those do work. So you can see now we're starting to get our roundness coming in on 3 sides.
So would it not be faster and easier to hog off some material with a saw or a hand plane?
Start to out of the way. Most of those corners that would annoy you are now gone. Just gives you a little bit of easier ride with the tool. Keep going until the entire piece and stop. And again, moving your tool rest when you're doing a cut like this, stop often, check your tool rest, bring it up as close as you can. You want to get safety, obviously, top priority. You can start to see.
John wants to know why you're not hogging off material with a hand plane.
I didn't sharpen my hand plane today, but that's what that's what the square one's for. So we're gonna come in now and get a little bit more aggressive. Again, if you get too aggressive, you'll see the piece stopping. And I don't know if you can tell yet, but so right there is that point that we're going to end up on, right up here. So we're going to clean all the way to that spot. A little bit more speed. Be careful on the ends, not to, you don't want to break those tips off out of the design. So we're starting to get, pretty much get the shape that we want now. You see the piece stop every now and then, and that's two reasons. A, I'm getting too aggressive, and B, my position of the tool obviously is not 100% proper. You see it there, coming right in. Damage those tips. Starting to get that plane shape. Not very much as far as bouncing around, which tells me I'm very close to getting rid of all those corners. Brian, what's that number in back of me? Is that about 1,200, 1,300 on the dial?
49. 49 double zero.
49. Okay, so that's almost 2,000 RPM. But now that, now that all the corners are basically knocked off, it just makes a real smooth cut. So just take a gander at where we're at. So we're starting to get round here, a little bit rough down here. So I'm just going to make a couple of sweeping cuts just to clean this up so we don't do too much sanding. And then we need to get a tenon on this side so we can reverse it. So on this cut, a little bit extra speed, and just a very light shading. I'm not really trying to cut. I just want to clean so I don't have to do that much sanding. But in mind, one thing you'll learn is when you don't do this well, you learn how to sand. And then when you get tired of sanding, you learn how to get this cut down to a science. Which I haven't quite got there yet. I'm working on it. You can see the lines that I'm leaving. It's choppy. Do that. I'm trying to do that. Easy on the tip. So normally right now I would sand a little bit. I'm going to skip that step for now. This is not too bad. But if you were at this stage of the game, you would probably try to clean this up. But honestly, this cut came out pretty good for a cherry burl.
So by an unsupported end, you mean there's no more wood backing it up?
No, my bevel, I'm running out of bevel support.
Right.
And you get to the end, this ear, you don't want to break these tips off because these are the three corners that I'm looking for. So coming down to the end, and even now sanding now to clean these ends up, just would probably be a better idea now. But as you get to the end, whether it's a bowl, whether it's a spindle, it doesn't matter. When you get to the end, your portion of your tool is now unsupported, and you want to be extremely delicate at that stage of the game. So these calipers are set to my smaller jaws, and basically where they'll fit is where I'm coming into. And I'm just going to cut a good size tenon. You can do this. I'm going to do it with my square potting tool, but a skew, whatever you like to cut. My jaws are one-way jaws. They are not dovetail, so they're spigot jaws. So I don't need to cut a fancy dovetail into this. If you have dovetail jaws, then this is probably not the best tool to do. Just a little peeling cut. I don't want to go too far. A bit more. Okay. So you want to make sure on this that this particular edge is nice and flat, and I'm using a square tool for that reason. And then obviously this needs to be extremely flat as well. And then we'll just part this waste off. If we had a parting tool. And there. And get one sooner or later. With the parting tool, you want to come into the piece low and then lift into the wood. Take another bite, lift into the wood again. And make 2 passes so that you're not binding the tool in its own track. Let me shift over this hand here. I can kind of see where I'm going. I'm not going to cut this on the fly. I am going to stop and part it off. And then one thing I want to do is not make this too big. I'm going to trim this down just a little bit. You can go all the way down till it's going to fall off, but having it wedged between the drives, and if it gets stuck or whatever, I'm just not comfortable with it.
I'm having my face right here. I'm not
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. So I did. This is only the second demonstration I've ever done. The first one I did was called a bird's mouth vase, and based on a piece of the design of the wood, it comes out to a beak in the top, and I didn't cut the tenon deep enough, and during the demo it flew off 4 times, so we never did finish the demo. We were chasing the piece around the classroom for quite a while. So I just want to clean this up just a little bit. Actually, it doesn't look that bad, so we're going to go ahead and part that off. We just take a little bit of pressure off so the saw will cut. One thing, took me a real long time to learn this secret, and I hope that most of you guys probably know this already, but I turned for almost 2 years before I realized So the bottom of your tenon does not touch the bottom of the chuck. The face of your tenon is going to touch the face of your jaws. And for the longest time, I did not know that. And always wondered why my pieces were just always crooked for some reason. And then somebody said, well, why are you bringing the tenon all the way to the bottom? That's where your problem is. So if you didn't know that, you've got one freebie today. You want to make sure that this piece is on. Jim is to my right, Brian to my left. And I'm thinking neither one of them wants to catch this piece.
Brought my baseball glove.
Yeah. I can't tell you how embarrassing that was. Doing that base in a 4 and it was 4 for 4. And it wasn't really even a catch. It was just enough to. I didn't have a good grip, and it was just enough to knock it out of the way. So now we're basically just same thing. Now we're just going to go to basic hollowing. So we've got a good fin, which we do, and we're just going to get away with a lot of this extra wood. So it's coming in and not too aggressive, because this is, if you're going to get a catch, this is where you're going to get it. So we just want to come in and get that off. And again, you could come in with your square tool. So use your imagination, but you can do it. You want to keep your tool rest as tight as you can, and that way if it does fly off, it might hit tool rest instead of either one of them. A little bit more speed. There we go, this one. Just as easily. You want to get those nice whiskers. When you're getting those nice whiskers, that's when you know you have the correct position on the tool. Just bring this in and here we get it hard. The camera angle is good for you guys, and as far as seeing the position of the tool, how the tool's approaching the wood, and it could be better than you guys watching me, body movement and all that stuff. To get a real direct look. Come in. Again, nothing heavy, easy knock, heavy cut, just no hurry.
Rick, the camera angle seems pretty good.
Probably would have had this already, but I'm trying to take your time and go right through. One thing I mentioned, so this wood is a piece of cherry ball. It's been down for a while, but its moisture content is still considered fairly green. One thing when you're doing a piece like this with green wood, you may stop yourself, maybe 3/4 of an inch short of finishing, put it on the shelf for a couple of weeks, then put it back on the lathe. It will move a little bit. Mine didn't move that bad, but the lid moved like crazy. So to avoid that, a lot of people that do boxes, obviously you don't do boxes with green wood for that reason. The lids will never match and so on and so forth. But I got pretty lucky. My lid, I'll show you in the close-up later, moved, quite a bit. And that has to be addressed. So you can see here I've got approximately an inch. So as I start to come in now, each cut, this is going to get shorter and shorter, and I want to maintain all three of these edges. So we'll stop a couple of times to make sure we don't go too far past. I'm going to back this camera up just a little bit so I can get I'm going to get a little bit more leverage. Come in a little bit more than that. Most lathes don't have this device on it. The other way, obviously, around that would be to come in this way instead. And again, it's all about that bevel, bring on the bevel. Following that.
Sacrilege to have a turning tool with a metal handle.
No, and mine, not all mine do. There is a reason for that. Most of the higher end tools, most people sharpen just the tang, so they don't have, they take, separate that. And I think that, and it just makes it easier. A lot of people, you could go with 2 tools, 1 handle, because they're all interchangeable. just the way the newer ones. But if you go get a Sorby or, you know, woodpeckers or any of the other ones, they're gonna have their own wooden handle, so. And this one, this is actually 60 degrees, and I actually made the handle, but I kept the interchangeable collar, which you can buy them separately.
And what's this tool that you're using now?
This is Cotter and Sons, and I had it specially ground. This is 60 degrees rather than your typical 50, 55. Just for the bottom of the bowls, it's a little easier.
Fingernail grind on there?
Not on this, no. On the one I was just using a second ago, yes. Actually, the first time I've used this tool, just a little getting used to how it. This is got the long Irish grind, a little bit of a fingernail grind to it.
Oh, Zoom.
I come in the best way I can as I'm working around the camera.
Zoom meeting.
Leaving a mark in the middle and it's not cleaning itself up, usually because your tool rest is just not at the perfect height. That should go right across, sweep right across, and not leave that little pimple. Everything's in the right from the way. I think we're getting the point across. That's all about it. I'll get an idea of where we're at here. How the hell out here? I still got about a good inch to go there. So it's more bringing in these walls and then just tighten these up just a little bit because I'm still a good 3/4 of an inch, maybe even an inch. So still some room there, and then we'll get that taken care of. Make sure I kind of hit my point a little bit, which I didn't want to do, but we'll clean that up a little bit, and if we have to, we'll sand around it. Using this type of wood, you probably want to stop here and just finish hollowing it and get back to this later. While I'm thinking that, if you did have this hole in the middle, which I don't, but same thing, you can basically just come right in on this point. Not going to take up a lot of wood. The same thing with this tool. If you give it a little bit of a tilt, you'll less apt to get a catch. The only thing with this tool without a hole, you don't have, it doesn't dig from the bottom very well, but it's great for the sidewalls. So there, I just turned the tool just a little bit on the side to dig in. And then if you were doing these tools only, you would again switch to the round. Make the clean cut. And again, I've got this tool, you can see there, I'm just slightly tilted, not ridiculous, just enough to avoid a cut. I'm sorry?
So Ned has a strange question.
Okay.
Do you think you could do this on a non-powered lathe? A spring pull lathe?
Depends on your leg. If you have a strong leg, I don't see why. Ned, this is the way they must have done it with those lathes. They, you know.
Unless they have a pump.
Well, the whole thing with the lathe, and I put that actually in the newsletter, was any lathe can make this bowl, as long as you've got good sharp tools. If you have dull tools, you could be here till next Wednesday, and you'll never get a bowl. You just won't do it. So any lathe with good sharp tools will take care of this. Even a foot one. What's that guy's name? Is it Roy? Is it Roy, right? I'm sure that's the way, that's the way they did it. So we get that fairly where we want it. And I just recently picked this up. So now the carbide tools also come negative rake. And it's just basically for scraping, cleaning. It'll do some cutting, but just less apt to get a catch, and you know, you'll be able to get a fairly clean cut, so they say. I haven't really had a chance to use it. And most of these carbide tools, I find they work better pulling rather than pushing into the cut. And these, you know, this one here, you know, you can just drop it below center a little bit. And it is giving me a pretty clean cut.
Was that a bought tool or was that a?
I'm sorry?
Is that a bought tool or is that a custom?
Oh no, this is my $20. You buy the tip, and the shaft and the handle are, you know, you make those in your own shop. So I'm not liking the way these corners came out, so I'm going to try to get that just a little bit better. And they go in this hole, not that hole, for that reason. One way you can get into these is when you're dealing with this type of a ear piece, you just back into it with the heel of the tool, and then you'll kind of know where your end is, and then follow it from there. If Ned actually has one of those, I didn't see his when I was over his house one day. Maybe he has one, and he could do a demo with that lathe someday.
I saw a Barnes lathe on Facebook. What? Barnes lathe. Little bicycle.
Is
the turner pedaling or is the helper pedaling? I believe it's the helper.
Came in to do the tip, I obviously had to make the rest of it match, even though I thought I was good where I was kind of done with the shape. It gets the point across. So there you go. So what I would normally do is my sander is basically ready. I'll just hit this actually a couple of times with the sander. And I think I got 120 in, 220, close enough. So there you have phase one, which is the bowl. Obviously, you know, I would have sanded and cleaned up a little better, but for the sense of the demo, just so everybody knows what we're doing and getting it done. I just marked the centers on these. This one's got a little rough spot, so that's going to be the back. This will be the top. That in. And I'm almost, that I actually almost need the whole thing. So I'm just going to basically round this and stop there. A lot of people find that, you know, they start with a roughing knife and taking these corners off and making the piece round. And really, it's come to find out it's just a wasted step. So I'm not going to do that. Just going to come in like it was a bowl. Is going to be the lid. It only needs to be maybe not really that much. A lot to play with. Just make sure the top is straight. Tops like that, just tighten it up. Just want to get this round enough that I can put a tenon on this as well. A little bit of a secret to finish it up a little bit. It should be pretty close. A little bit more. Easy. I used to think it was my grizzly lathe that did that, but I don't know, it's all lathe. The guy said that So come in here and just look good. Good. Give me what I need.
What are you using it? Why is that? That's just a point?
No, it's actually a spindle center. It's geared. It's really for
Like a
spindles.
step center?
No, it's for spindle turning. It's teeth all the way around. I'll show you when I.
step center.
Yeah, I kind of like it. I used to use it on all my bowls as well. That four pointed finding, I don't know. It's just it's not my favorite.
They don't always bite really well.
No. But I kind of like that one. And again, this is if you're making this and it's green wood, you probably want to leave this a little big and get to it later. But we're not going to do that. Just want to get this enough that I can put a tenon on it. Off a little bit extra wood and I'll put a tenon on here. I'm working on the back of it. If you're going to do a tenon, I don't really care if it's, I don't care what it is, to be honest with you. Get my tenon on there. Back to my here. It looks like I got a big blade. Yeah, so I'm going to have to move way over. If you really wanted to, you could actually just part this piece off and then take it over to the drill press and put the hole to the finial. I wasn't even thinking about that, but that's a different option. Because I'm basically putting a tenon on here so that I can use the tail stock to drill a hole. Now what I'm doing, I'm like, well, that's an awful lot of work for. Yeah, and I could have just took it to the drill press and put it, found center and done it that way. Yeah. Do that. Yeah, hold on to it a little bit. No, it should be able to grab it. Enough that we can grab it. We'll just mark some of that off. Don't need all of it. Never had a lathe on wheels before. And once this goes in the basement, I'll never have another one. Wheels and lathes don't mix.
No.
The guy that had this must have rolled his car in and then rolled his lathe in and vice versa. And so he had to special order the casters because most casters won't handle the weight of this. Put that up. Take this off. Okay. My daughter's laptop, she don't mind. I think. I got a, I think it's 5/16. It doesn't matter really what size you use. Now that, yeah. Clean this little knob up there. Leave a little hole there for my drill bit. And there it is. This is basically going to just go right through. It's just to hold the finial on. Put a little of that on the bottom of the finial. About 5/16, I think. Yeah, just a regular brad point. Yeah, nothing fancy. Not just slow the lathe down. I didn't, but when you drill in, they tell you basically you slow the lathe down to 300, 200, 300, give or take. And I just want to make sure this is the inside of my bowl. I'm going to take this down just a little bit more. Just a little bit. Again, most of this is going to get parted off. So I think I'll stop right about there. That's where my lid is. It should be fairly good. And my tool. So you could have skipped that last step that I did and parted this right off. And then took it over to the drill press and put a hole in it. This one I can actually come in a little bit of an undercut. The flat and the light is getting hard to see. Just part that off. I get that. I don't really need it at this point. I'll try to keep it right in there. Really good. Actually, it's better the other way. Might want to consider cleaning that up, which I can do. I just flipped it around. Take that off for a second. Switch this out. Spindle turning, which I don't really do a lot of. This is probably one of the first pieces I actually had to do. Mostly, if you look in the back shelf later, everything I do is just big. I just like big. Big bowls, unusual bowls, shapes of all different sizes. Really my cup of tea. There is such a thing. These jaws don't really fit this piece, so tail stock is very important. Because if you get a catch, obviously it'll knock it right off. Finial's not my cup of tea either, but we've got to learn. Let the tool rest up as best I can. Actually, switch this tool rest out. Actually had my nephew make me a few of these different sizes just for this reason. When you try to do pens and you got a 16-inch tool rest, it's a little bit difficult. So I just want to get this round. And you could switch over to a wrapping valve. You know, I have them under there, but they're already in my hand, so why not? So start bringing this down to a real fine. And depending on your patience and your skill level, you can make this as skinny or, Cindy DeRosa makes these about the size of a toothpick. I'm not going to go that small because it's actually going to be a handle for my box. So I don't think that would be appropriate. But I am going to try to make it, we want to make it a little decorative. What I'm going to try to actually do is to shape something like that. Something like that. Something like that. And then kind of like the knot idea. So what I'll do is just switch over to a smaller detail gouge. See how, I don't want to say too fine, but get a little something, I don't know. If I could get a little ball there. So let me make that a ball. Roll with something like that. I'm going to just come in something to that effect. Yeah. That's not good. So I tried to make this a 40-40, copying Cindy's tip, and it's very delicate, and when you don't present it right, you pay the price. I'm going to bring this back here. Something similar to that. And then obviously you could sand this now. If you take the life center off now, you know, then you can get, if you want this to be almost a toothpick, just get this out of the way and go for it. And so what I want to do is get that to match the drill bit that I used. I'll come in with my 1/8 parting tool. You want to leave that seat, you know, so it'll look like one piece. So I'm going to guess nothing into the head. Once I get the size that I want, I can reshape this piece. Again, a lot of guys will see this trick and it's not my cup of tea, but that's it. It is a little loose because obviously that piece is going to be glued in there. So I did leave it loose. So we can take and just clean this up now and get rid of this wood. So I want to save that little nipple, obviously. Let's do this up a little bit.
It's starting to get a little delicate there, Rick.
Yeah. You could go a little, I bet you could go a lot more. I bet you could. You know, again, the only reason I tried to stay a little meaty, if you will, is because it's the main point of lifting my lid. And again, you would sand now, obviously, before we do what I'm doing. But I know everybody doesn't want to sit here till 9 o'clock saying, well, that Rick, he really knows how to sand, or gee, he better take some sanding lessons. You know? So skipping, you know, I skipped a little bit of, you know, sanding, and you know, on the inside of the box, I'll put that back on there, and you know, I'll spend a lot more time sanding and really getting the tool marks out, et cetera, et cetera. So, and I'm going to redo this because I kind of like it. This should have been the shape the first time, but I actually cut it this way. So I can put this back between centers, clean this up nice, and leave this ridge, because that's going to make it sit more better in the box, almost like a stop. The other way you could do this with the you could use a parting tool. You could use that square roughing gouge and cut a shelf for this. You could make this perfectly round and then put a shelf on the inside to hold it in. Just keep in mind when you're doing these, this is wet wood, so this is going to move a lot, and I'll show you mine over here. But so that's basically what we're after for today's demo. And again, we'll spend a lot more time, but not tonight. This is not the time to be, sitting out here at midnight and trying to figure out how to get this nice and clean. It's all about the bowl gouge and cleaning it up, or sanding, or even that negative rake.
So when you're sanding, you just chuck it up and.
I'm sorry?
So when you're sanding, you just spin it on the chuck and stick your hand in there?
Well, when I'll do the inside, couple of ways to do it. I use Harbor Freight $20 right angle ear grinder. So I'll hold this in the chuck on the lathe. And if you're having a hard time, you could actually set the indexing pin and lock it. And then you can just take that grinder, and grind. I mean, they're $20, and when they break, you throw them away and go get another one. I actually went to a demo in Connecticut last week and didn't realize you take that same grinder, $24, whatever it is, and they actually make a straight one as well. And you don't necessarily have to hook up the ear hose. You just use it as an inertia sander. Just, the angle that you hold, it'll free spin. So I'll leave this, on the spindle. I'll sand with the palm sander, usually by hand. You can spin it, but with this piece, if you put your finger in there by mistake, the other thing I do when I get to the inside, if you want to do it that way while it's spinning, this piece of foam, I don't know, I think it used to be a little scrub brush or something, and I just wrap my paper on it, and I'll put this in there rather than you never really want to put your hand in, especially when it's got 3 points on it. So something like this. But I have found I've been using that ear grinder for about 2 weeks now. I got a bigger air compressor that can handle it, and really gets, you can really get right in there with a 1 inch, I think mine is actually a 2 inch, or a 1 inch with a 2 inch pad is what I got. And you can actually do the inside quite well with that. It's a vibrating and oscillating ear sander. And you can't beat the price. With the coupon, it's like, I don't know, $22.